What up, party people? What up, boys and girls? Chef here, New Zealand Murder History Podcast, and check this out. Over here, we got a war memorial. Might check it out later, at the end. I'm in Takaka, nowhere near Manners Mall in Wellington, but I thought I'd park here by the World War II. It's actually a war memorial for plenty of wars, but we're doing a World War II history lesson for y'all. And anyway, we're going to take a look at the Battle of Manners Street, American soldiers versus New Zealanders, right in Wellington Central. It was one rowdy Saturday night, 3rd of April, 1943. Now, I got to tell you, there's plenty I don't know about this one. And as the press was censored on reporting about this mad punch-up at the time, yeah, it's hard to know for sure. But I was able to find 2 short articles to read. We're going to read one shortly, but I'm going to read the scripted podcast for you first. But first, my show is not suitable for children. Kids, click off. And anyone suffering from PTSD, also click off and seek support from your GP or call one of the many 0800 numbers available. Yeah, my show is just for educational purposes and not to cause offence to the Allied soldiers who came here to defend New Zealand or anyone else, really. From what I know, it's basically more or less what I've been told. These American soldiers were stationed in Wellington City, amongst other places in the country, to fight the Japanese if they ever invaded New Zealand, which they never did. Now, our army boys, we were off fighting in France and the Pacific Islands, I don't know, maybe Samoa, I'm not really sure. The point is, all our blokes were off somewhere else. And all the Kiwi girls, well, they weren't getting any dick. But as luck would have it, our American allies were ready, willing, and able to get the job done. USA! 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 So what's the big problem, you ask? Well, there was still a few New Zealand Army blokes about, and plus a bunch of civilian blokes kicking it, and, well, they weren't happy. Now let's look at some photos. So yeah, these are some American Army dudes on the train to Paikokariki in 1942. Good looking fellas. Yeah, they probably broke a few hearts while they were here. But hey, whatever. This is the Manners Mall I remember. This is when cars couldn't drive through it. Actually, cars still can't drive through it, but they've opened it up as a street now. It's a buses only street. Yeah. The Allied Servicemen Club, which we'll be discussing shortly, was to the left here. You can't see it in the photo. I mean, it's a post office now, but anyway. Manners Street back in the day, this is not from the 40s. This is like I can't remember, a 1959 photo or something, so it would have looked somewhat similar to this. See that old bank on the right? Yeah, that's a Burger King now. I think it's got apartments in the top or something. And here's a bunch of American soldiers just kicking it in Oriental Bay. It's sort of around the corner from Oriental Bay on the way to Evans Bay Parade, but you get the picture. Alright, might have to open the window because my camera keeps overheating. It's a real mission. We'll make it happen. So yeah, anyone from Wellington? Is that post office on the corner still there? You know the one, right? The one that's next to that tiny little as park with some like little park benches and maybe half a dozen trees or something. Anyway, that post office used to be a bar called the Allied Servicemen Club bar or something. Anyway, on the 3rd of April 1943, some American Army boys were drinking at the Allied Servicemen Club, and a bunch of Maoris rocked up to have some beers with them. Yeah, the soldiers were less than welcoming and wouldn't let the Maori boys in, and that's what kicked this all off. Now, apparently, it was more about the Yankee soldiers banging all of our women than it was about racism. But anyway, this fight broke out from one end of Manners Mall to the other. Also Lower Cuba Street, and some people even say 2 Americans were killed. But this probably isn't accurate. You know, with the censorship of the press going on at the time, though, it's really hard to know. I mean, I hope we didn't kill 2 American soldiers. I mean, they came here to defend our country and bang all our women. Top blokes, if you ask me. Plus, they built some bridges and roads and stuff. I mean, what more could New Zealand ask for? Okay, not letting the Maoris in the bar, that was out of order. But New Zealanders can be pretty racist sometimes. Well, let's read another article. Well, read an article, rather. And after that, I'm going to tell you guys some Manners Mall war stories. Okay, so we're reading The Battle of Manners Street, Wellington, 1943, and I'm on Tiara website. So I'm just going to read to you what it says here. This information was published in 1966 in an Encyclopedia of New Zealand, edited by A.H. McClintock. It has not been corrected and will not be updated. Up-to-date information can be found elsewhere in Tiara. So yeah, like I said, name of the article, The Battle of Manners Street, Wellington, 1943, available on www.tiara.govt.nz/en, that means encyclopedia, /page 7. This riot, which passed into Wellington legend as the Battle of Manners Street, took place on the evening of Saturday, 3rd of April, 1943. It began at the Allied Services Club in Manners Street, now the Manners Street Post Office, when it is alleged servicemen from the southern United States refused to let some Maori servicemen drink in the club. When the Americans removed their army service belts to emphasize their point of view, New Zealand servicemen joined in, and the battle spread onto the streets. American military police who arrived to restore order took sides and used their batons. The fighting spread to the ANA Club in Willis Street, where belts and knives were used, and onto Cuba Street. It's also been estimated that over 1,000 American and New Zealand troops were involved. I'm not really sure about that. It sounds a bit exaggerated to me, but anyway, as well as several hundred civilians. The battle lasted for about 4 hours before order was restored by the civil police. Many American soldiers were injured during this affray, and at least 2 were killed. The Battle of Manners Street was the ugliest riot in New Zealand history. The Battle of Manners Street was not the only clash between American and New Zealand troops in New Zealand cities. About the same time, there were 2 similar riots in Auckland, and a further clash occurred outside the Mayfair Cabaret in Cuba Street, Wellington, on the 12th of May, 1945. There was also a clash between a small party of American servicemen and Maori civilians in Otaki in October 1943. In no case has the result of any of the ensuing inquiries been published, and owing to the strictures of wartime censorship, no reference to the riots appeared at the time in local newspapers. End of article. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds a little jumped up to me. It's like 1,000 soldiers and hundreds of New Zealanders. It probably wasn't that bad, but who knows? It's all too long ago. Alright, now let's read New Zealand History website article, Battle of Manners Street. So this one, the author is the Ministry for Culture and Heritage. Obviously that's not the name of the author, but that's what I have here. and updated on the 8th of March 2021. Available on www.govt.nz, 3rd of April 1943. So, I just want to clarify, it's the Battle of Manners Street, 3rd of April 1943. The article was updated on the 8th of March 2021. Anyway, let's read it. Soldiers and civilians slugged it out on the streets of Wellington during the Battle of Manners Street, the best-known clash between New Zealanders and American servicemen during the Second World War. Drunken Allied servicemen fighting each other late on a Saturday night was not a good look, and news of the brawl was hushed up at the time. One young man, who said he was a former member of the Royal New Zealand Air Force, was convicted of being drunk and disorderly and fined £2 when he appeared before a magistrate on the Monday morning. He was granted name suppression in view of his record. At any one time during the 2 years after June 1942, between 15,000 and 45,000 American soldiers and sailors were based in New Zealand, either before or immediately after experiencing horrors of war in the Pacific. The American invasion led to a clash of cultures. Romantic liaisons developed between American troops and New Zealand women, and about 1,500 New Zealand women married Americans during the war. Many New Zealand men, especially soldiers serving overseas, resented the popularity. It must mean soldiers that were serving overseas, but anyway, they resented the popularity of these American bedroom commandos, and tensions erupted in brawls in Wellington and Auckland. End of article. Okay, so that's pretty weird. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty strange, you know. It's like 15,000 to 45,000 Americans stationed here. I mean, there's a pretty big margin of error. Like, was it 15,000 or 45,000? What I'm getting at is, you know, the facts in these old-ass history ones, they're pretty few and far between. It's hard to say what really happened there, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we killed 2 Americans. Maybe we didn't. I hope not. I mean, I'm not saying I support the American army of today or anything. I mean, they're pretty sketchy, but let's face it, so are we. But hey, these dudes back in the 40s, they came here to defend the shores, you know. And you guys from Wellington, check this out. Go check out all them gun turrets and stuff up in Brooklyn, and there are a few around the city. They're up in Karori and stuff. Those were set up to fight the Japanese, should they ever come here, which they didn't make it. I've heard people talk tale about a periscope from a Japanese submarine was seen in Wellington Harbour, but it sounds made up to me. But, you know, it's all hard to know, isn't it? Well, I guess we'll take a walk then. Let's check out this park. Car's locked. Yeah, that's good. Alright, let's do it. Yeah, so it's a pretty cool little park, you know. You got Takaka District War Memorial, Maori Battalion. Yeah. It's a lot of history of New Zealand in all sorts of places. Here we got, check this out, I was having a look at this before. So it's the New Zealand Wars, 1843 to 1872. Could write a whole bunch of podcasts on that. South African War, the Boer War. I never even knew we were there until I came to this park anyway. I found that out last time I came here, not today, but yeah, Boer War. World War One. So it's with the Maori Battalion fighting the Germans. Don't really know much about it. World War Two. So obviously, yeah, we were in France and I don't know, where else were we? Monte Cassino, is that in Italy? I think so. Bunch of places, really. Maybe the Middle East, I think Egypt, I'm really not sure. Malaya and Borneo, so Malaya is now Malaysia, but it was Malaya. We were there too. Korea, so were we versus North Korea? Must be, I mean we can't have been versus South Korea, they're like our allies and stuff. The Korean War anyway, you get the picture. Vietnam, we were in Nam. Peacekeeping and other operations. And then there's a memorial to our former foes. I like that because it's like, yeah, we're not enemies anymore. The war's over, you know. So it's a pretty cool little park, you know. It's not bad anyway. See those trees over there? Those are Nico palms. A lot of people think all sorts of palm trees are Nico palms and will call other palm trees Nico palms, but that is an actual Nico palm. You can tell because of the way it goes straight up in a V shape. The other palm trees don't do that. They sort of branch out more. Yeah, they're pretty cool. They don't typically grow in the wild in New Zealand. They do in a couple of places. You find them in Punakaiki, and there's another place called Nico north of Westport. But yeah, they're usually planted by landscape gardeners and stuff. Those are punga trees, for those of you guys who aren't from New Zealand. Yeah, now we'll tell some Manners Mall stories then, may as well, seeing as we came all the way out here and whatnot. So Manners Mall, Wellington. Yeah, I used to kick it in Manners Mall. It was sort of like something you did when you were like, I don't know, a punk kid and you were sitting around with no money and you and your friends didn't really have anything to do. So what did you do? You sat in Manners Mall and, I don't know, kicked it, I guess. Anyway, one time I was kicking it in Manners Mall and I was drinking with this guy. We were having a few beers or something. Back then you were allowed to drink in the streets. Of course we were underage. We were like, I don't know, 14 for example. We might have been 15. We weren't any older than that. And so I think I don't know, I can't remember. Maybe we had our beers in Burger King cups or something. Can't really remember. We were just sitting there and this dude comes up. And we knew him. I mean, I didn't know him very well, but he knew my mate at the time. And he wanted us to come to Frankitts Park with him. And we were like, no, we don't want to go to Frankitts Park. The thing about Frankitts Park is it's right on the Wellington waterfront. So this was like nighttime, you know. It's quite cold down there. It's like you're just getting cold air blowing off the sea. It just didn't really sound like a great idea. So we just said no. Anyway, this dude went over to Frankitts Park and got absolutely beaten to... he got beaten up real badly, eh? It was like so badly it was on the news. I seen it the next day because I remember I was at home the next night and I turned the news on and there was this dude that was talking to me yesterday and he was like talking to me and he was saying, I mean, he was on the news talking to the... Anyway, you get what I mean. He's on the news and he was getting interviewed and basically he went to Frankitts Park and I don't know, the sketchy dude rocked up to him and was like, have you got $20? And he was like, nah. And he was like, well, you know what happens if you don't got $20, eh? And he was like, oh, yeah. And then the sketchy dude really gave him a hiding. I gave him like a broken jaw and I don't know, he had some other injuries, eh? I think the dude was okay. I never met him again. But he got pretty badly dealt to. So yeah, Manners Mall. That was one of my memories from Manners Mall. This guy asking me to come to Frankitts Park and me and my mate weren't keen. It just didn't sound like such a good idea, you know. Yeah, other Manners Mall stories include me just sitting at that park by the post office there. In fact, that post office, as I recall, in the 90s they closed Porirua Hospital, right? And they let all these patients out, and some of these people they were like really institutionalized. They'd been there for like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years and stuff. I'm glad they closed the hospital and let them out, but the point is they had no support. And since then, agencies have been set up to look after them. WellLink, there's other ones too. But anyway, long story short, this dude rocked into the post office in Manners Mall, and he like stabbed somebody, because I don't know why he did it. Maybe he was... Obviously he wasn't well, but I mean, I don't know exactly why the reason was. They don't think they were known to each other. He was just like, Maybe he's just so institutionalized he thought going to jail was a better option, I don't know. But yeah, that dude was from Porirua Hospital. So that was in the post office that used to be the Allied Servicemen Club. I think the dude who got stuck was alright, I mean, obviously he wasn't that great, he got stabbed, but I think he was non-life threatening injury. He didn't get killed or nothing, you know, but I can't remember, Yeah, Manners Mall, what else? There's this KFC right in the middle of Manners Mall. And I remember in the 90s there was like, and this is a long time ago, I'm talking about, I don't even know, like 1997, 1998 maybe. And there was this dude, and he was this homeless dude, and he was like not well at all, and he was passing out and like kind of rolling on his side. And all these people were like started to crowd around him because he looked real messed up. And someone must have called the ambulance or something, but nobody really knew what to do, and nobody helped him, although I don't really know if there's anything anyone could have done. Yeah, and this dude, his pants had sort of fallen down a bit, and you could see his butt. It was real gross, and I think he died, because the ambulance, they came, and they put him on a stretcher, and they put a sheet over his face and took him off, and they weren't in a hurry or nothing. Yeah, it was pretty sad, this Pākehā dude. I don't know, he's about mid-50s. I don't know, he might have been having a medical event, or a drug overdose, or all of the above. Yeah. And this street kid even stuck like a cigarette kind of by him when he was sort of rolling over, so he might roll over onto this lit cigarette, but he didn't. Yeah. It was real sad, But yeah, that was another thing that happened in Manners Mall. We just used to walk around town, you know, with nothing to do, and there was like my crew, and we were like the Pākehā kids, and there was the Maori boys, and we were friends with the Maori boys. It wasn't like a racist kind of thing, it was just sort of how things were back then. But we got along with the Maori boys, like sometimes we'd rock up with them and hang out with them for a while. And there was this dude, and he was part of the Maori boys crew, and he was like living above the Lombard car park. I'm not making this up, this is weird as hell. This dude, he was like young as, I mean we were all young as, we were 15 or something, you know, and he got kicked out of home, and he was like living above where you go to pay for parking when you drive into the Lombard car park. So he couldn't like go to his place in the daytime because people would see him. He'd just go in there at night time, and he'd scale this wall, and he'd go into this crawl space above the Lombard car park, which is, it's just down this alleyway off Manners Mall. But yeah, it's pretty weird because it's like you have to scale this wall, and you go into this crawl space, and then you're in this crawl space, and there's like, you couldn't even stand up, and there's just sort of like rocks on the ground, and this dude had like a sort of thing that he was sleeping on, maybe some foam rubber, or I can't really remember, it was a long time ago. He had like a pillow and some stuff. It was like, it was pretty crazy, it was like hardcore. Yeah, and I remember my friend, one of the Maori boys, and he was like, yeah, nah bros, his parents kicked him out of home, sad, And I was like, oh yeah, what's that, guys? And yeah, we're just kicking it in this dude's little crawl space, and there was no lights, so we were like flicking lighters to see. Yeah, I think the dude was doing okay though. He definitely wasn't doing real well, but he was happy that we came to visit. Anyway, those are my stories of Manners Mall. Shout out to the Maori Battalion and all the soldiers that went off to fight all them crazy ass wars back in the day. It's mad. Have a good one, everybody.